What's up, world? How's everybody doing today, tonight, tomorrow? As I always say, whatever time, realm, dimension you're living in, I hope you're doing great, feeling blessed, no stress. Well, what am I doing? You might ask yourself. Well, I'm looking for these. Now, I showed you could find shark's teeth on a dirt road before. Well, whoever thought that you could find meteors in mulch piles? Yes, folks, I know you're thinking I'm crazy, but every time we put down new mulch, we find these lovely boogers. Yes, meteors. And if you look right here, there's one too. Yep. For some reason, when we lay new mulch down on these properties, we seem to find little meteorites mixed in. And you start doing this long enough, you really know what they look like, what they feel like. The density on these is amazing compared to a rock the same size. You can actually see the little metal chunks in there, a little rust. I test them all the time to make sure that they attract a magnet, do all that stuff, but you can feel the weight and just the look alone. I mean, if you look at, say, this one right here, look how cool that is, like a little moon rock looking thing. This is not lava rock, folks. Lava rock is really light and definitely not this dense or magnetic. So yeah, if you got any new mulch around the house or anywhere, go looking around. Look for rocks that look like this. You never know. So shark's teeth on a dirt road and meteorites mixed in with mulch. You never know what you're going to find out there. It's really an amazing world. Keep your eyes open, folks. But that's not what we're talking about today. Guys, I know it's been a while. Let me crawl up in here. Yes, don't you wish you had a van that just had about 5 inches more clearance so you could actually lift your head up and you didn't have to look like Igor? Yes, let's go to the back, mister. It's still a nice van. I love my van, don't get me wrong. But I could go for that extra couple of inches so I could stand up right. Anywho, guys, I know a lot of you came to this channel expecting non-stop Mandela fun. Mandela madness. And yes, I love the Mandela Effect. Well, I don't love it, but I'm fascinated by it. And I love to do research on it, and I love to talk about it. But, big but, this is just incredible things. So I'm not always going to talk about the Mandela Effect. I'm not always going to talk about D-WAVE and CERN. I'm going to talk about what's in the news and what we need to hear. Some issues are going to take precedence over others. And right now, with my time restraints as far as work, being a full-time dad and still living life, I can't always do Febreze and Febreze over and over and talk about these things. So I have to be careful and pick and choose. And when that day comes where I can do everything I want to do, my golly, I will upload everything. And I will try to get it all out there. But for right now, I have to pick and choose. So I apologize. But today's a special day because we're going to talk about Mandela Effect. Yep. I got one I want to talk about that happened the other day with me and my son. He had a little freak out moment about a train named Thomas. I got another one that happened on The Office, some residuals. And I got a new one, possibly a new one, I want to hear all of your opinions about. And I want to hear what you guys think. I want to hear if I'm on something or if I'm on something. So let's get started without further ado. Let's talk about Thomas. Yes, you all know Thomas the steam engine. Now, when I told this to my son, he had a flip out moment. He's like, "Dad, you're so wrong. It's Thomas the train." He's like, "I remember the toys." I didn't remember the toys because I almost had to take a loan out from the bank to afford these toys. They were ridiculously expensive, and any other parents, you know what I'm talking about. These things are crazy expensive. But so we started looking up things on Thomas, and sure enough, there it is, Thomas the steam engine. His mouth, poor little kid, he was floored. He couldn't believe it. But the funny part was, it says Thomas the steam engine on the toy. But then when you read the description underneath, Google still has it as Thomas the train. And you can find tons of residual on Thomas the train, or Thomas the choo-choo train, as the kids called it. How's it going? But he couldn't believe it. And this is one that gets me too, because Thomas the steam engine, my son was right. It does not sound right. I believe that's completely wrong. I felt bad for the little guy though. He's always been a believer in the Mandela Effect, but this one really got to him. So all of you, I know maybe you went through this with your kids, trying to tell them that, hey, Thomas's name changed, and they didn't want to believe you. It's a crazy one out there. Another one I want to talk about, these are the residuals. I don't watch a lot of TV. But when I do, I try to watch The Office, and it's one of the shows I like, other than Nat Geo, Discovery, Science Channel, all that kind of stuff. I like watching those, but I don't have time to watch TV, so thank goodness for Netflix and binge watch. But there was an episode, and I found a lot of residuals on this show, and these are just two of them, and I'll probably bring more of them to you guys later, but for right now, I just want to talk about two. We all remember cup of noodles or cup-o noodles, right? Well, so do the people on this show. At least that's what they say. You may not see it, but they say it. So have a quick look at this, and then we'll talk about it.
At the restaurant, and it wasn't even his own. Yeah, some stuff. Party back DVD of American Pie 2, which is his favorite movie, and he rented it free, so I can guarantee you won't get that.
69 cup of noodles.
Which we realize sounds bad.
That is favorite lunch.
Alright, so she says cup of noodles. She doesn't say cup noodle, which is just the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. Cup noodle. Cup noodle. Doesn't even make sense. This is one, like, I grew up eating this stuff. We were poor. So, and when I first moved out of my house, I was super poor. So that's all I ate. That and like $2 pizzas, whatever I could afford. And ketchup soup. If you ain't ever had ketchup soup, you ain't been poor. I got one more from the show I want you guys to see. And this is a big one that we all remember. This is one of the first Mandela effects that I was like, whoa, I know that's not right. Because I had the shirt, lunchbox, toys, you name it. So check this one out real quick. Yep, Luke, I'm your father. Once again, people remember Luke, I'm your father. It's none of this, you know, no, I'm your father. It just doesn't have the same kick. Luke, I am your father. We've heard it from James Earl Jones. We've heard it from tons of people. We know what it was, and that's why I say keep your eyes open. These older shows are a great place to find these residuals still remaining. We need to be careful because I got a feeling the influx of AI and D-WAVE improving on itself, it's going to come a time to where these things are going to get harder to find. When these systems open up onto the internet and start filtering what they want, we're going to lose this stuff. So we got to get it while we can. We see up in Canada now, they're implementing these AI systems of pre-crime, which I'll be talking about in the next video probably, but that's for another time. But we're seeing these systems come in, so we got to be mindful, and we got to pick them up fast before they're gone, before it's too late. We can't let our past be taken away because we know what these things were. So, last but not least, any of you that grew up in the 80s, yeah, I was an 80s baby. We all remember old Ronald Reagan and Nancy out there just telling the kids to just say no, right? Well, during that time, there was a commercial that came out, and we all remember this commercial. People made fun of it, but we had posters in my classroom. Kids were wearing t-shirts back then. Now you see memes about it, but it was, this is your brain. This is your brain on drugs. Any questions? Simple, it's to the point. It's easy to understand. Here's your brain. Here's your brain on drugs. It's fried. Want a side of bacon? Maybe. But now we look, and now it says, this is your brain. This is drugs. This is your brain on drugs. Any questions? It's longer, it's not to the point. It's what we see in the Mandela a lot. We see that extra S, or an S taken away, or an O, or an of. All these things, these little slight differences. People say it's not a big deal. What's the big deal? If something changes that, you know, interview with a vampire, you know, or interview with the vampire. These little differences. What's the big deal? The big deal is if these little differences, these little changes can happen, that means that big changes can happen. And we look at something as far as like the butterfly effect. Little changes can make big changes. Just with our lives. You make a little change in life, it can snowball into a big change. So, and the other part that you have to realize is if these little changes can happen, then that means it does happen, that it is real. And the fact that it is real, it needs to be acknowledged and it needs to be studied, and people need to realize that this subject is not just some conspiracy nut job, that it is a serious thing that people should acknowledge, and we should learn more about, and we should demand answers, and we should have those answers. But unfortunately, we know in the society we live in, with the powers that be, we will never probably find these things out openly by them. We will have to forcibly take these answers and demand them and somehow figure it out and put it on the mainstream, which is controlled. That's why we have forums like this, thankfully, but for how long, we don't know. But this is a big one. I feel I want to get everybody's opinion on it, and I want to see what you all think. Was it, this is your brain on drugs, any questions? Or was it, this is your brain, this is drugs, this is your brain on drugs, any questions? I just don't remember it that way. And granted, yes, we do remember things wrong sometimes. But when you have 90% of the population saying it was one way, and a small other percentage just saying it's no big deal, it was always that way, it's the ones that don't care that always don't agree with it, if you notice. It's the ones that say, what's the big deal? Because they just go along with the norm, right? They go along with what society tells them. Thankfully, there's a group of us that don't. We don't go with the norm. We step outside the box. We don't do everything we're told. We don't fall in line. We don't just believe because they tell us, because the news says it. Oh, well then we must believe it, right? We don't let them program us, and we can't do that, ever. If we do, we've lost. We might as well just hang it up and get in line. So guys, definitely, I want to hear your opinion on this one. I want to know, is my hamster falling off the wheel or what? And for the haters out there that think just because I have a country accent I'm ignorant, I can color inside the lines, okay? Guys, keep it clean, please. If you're going to insult me, try to keep it clean. There are some younger viewers on here, and if you want to be that tough, some of the stuff y'all say, I've read some things that I can't believe you type this. You're that tough on a keyboard. I make it very easily known where you can find me. You want to be that tough, come find me in person and be a man and talk to me in person, and let's see how tough you really are. As always, guys, thank you so much from the bottom of my heart, and more than anything, y'all stay blessed, y'all stay incredible. So much more to come, even Mandela effects. See ya. Oh, just say no.